Hello, and welcome back to Jenna Gets Creative. What's this weird thing? We're gonna find out. So, over Christmas, I was given a couple of art-related things for Christmas, and I also had the opportunity to go to an art store for the first time in pretty much 2 years. So we're gonna do a mini haul. We're gonna look at everything I got over the Christmas period, both things that were gifts and things that I bought, and then I'm gonna do kind of a first impression semi-review on one of the things. Not this thing. We're just gonna have fun finding out what this is all about. By the way, thank you so much those of you who gave feedback on the audio back on Wednesday. To be clear, thank you everybody who gave feedback, but I was looking for feedback on the vocals, not on the background music. I realized that wasn't the best choice of background music, but that wasn't the question. That's a YouTube supplied music, and I tried to make it quiet enough that it wasn't overriding the vocals, and I guess since it is such a busy song, it sounded a bit staticky. Thank you anyway for the comments. If the pinned comment down below today asks for more feedback on the vocals, that means I am using the audio captured by the mic again today, and if it doesn't, that means I absolutely hated it, and I've gone with the vocals captured by the camera like I always used to. So let's jump into it. First off, let's do items that were given to me as gifts. We do have this 4-in-1 pen tool and several large canvas paint by number kits. So my sister wanted to do a special paint night, so she got one for herself, she got one for mom, and she got one for me, and we were working on painting while I was there hanging out. I didn't get to finish this one. Eventually I will. There's a very washed out blue version of the final picture. The painting is turning out to have more purple tones to it. This bundle here is 4 more paintings, and it's a family set because it was given to my husband and my daughter and I as a family so that we can work on them together at some point. I can't show you these little previews for them because they're all wrapped up inside the canvases, and I really don't want to undo this bundle just yet. Thank you so much, Jess, for giving these to us. That was such a thoughtful gift, and I think I'll probably finish this one while I'm listening to an audiobook that I need to review. So this pen was a stocking stuffer. It's supposed to be a screwdriver, a level, a ruler, and just a regular ballpoint pen. Let's open it up and check out all these different functions it has. I figured technically I could include this in an art supply review because, like, it's a pen. It does write. I know it's a ballpoint pen. It's more of a office stationery type thing. So there we go. Just average ballpoint pen. Not waterproof, I'm sure, but let's prove it. Oh, interesting. This pen appears to be reasonably waterproof. The big one's moving a little bit. The individual lines, not so much. And this brush is not completely clean. There is still some pink pigment on it from something else. So there's the tiny little bubble level in there. Ironically enough, I do have a very small level. This is the kind that you would hang on a string to make sure the string is level, but I just put this on top of the camera to make sure it's level in 2 directions so that this view is flat as I can get it. But if I didn't have that, I would probably end up using this. That's cool. And that is a ruler. Is it an accurate ruler? Let's grab another one to compare. Not quite. And the final tool, it is also a screwdriver. So there we go. There's the flat head. And if we pull it out and switch it around, there is the Phillips head. Feels kind of wiggly. I don't know how much torque you would actually get with this, but I suppose if you're in a pinch, that would work. So gimmicky, cute, cool, interestingly waterproof. Let's move on to the actual art supplies that I bought when I went to an art store. Alright, here we go. This is everything I bought while I was at Opus Framing and Art Supplies. While I was visiting in BC. That's a chain that's only in British Columbia, and it's the art store company that I grew up going to, so I always take an opportunity to go there when I go back to BC to visit my family, and it had been 2 years. And we don't really have many dedicated art supply stores out here in Newfoundland, so it's been about that long since I've gone to an art store anyway. It was nice to go. I didn't want to spend too much. I also didn't want to get too much big stuff to put in luggage. But I did get a few things. I got an extra dust catch eraser, because why not? I love my Tombow Mono Knock stick eraser, and I've been very curious to try the even smaller one, so I got a 0. So there's the tiny little eraser stick. For comparison, there's the Knock and the 0, and it comes with 2 refills. I also got some Pebeo drawing gum. This is liquid masking fluid for preserving the white of the paper. Primarily you do this with watercolor, that kind of material, but you can really do it with any medium. I have tried the actual Frisket brand liquid Frisket a few times, and I think that the bottle I bought was, I think it was old stock to begin with, sitting around in Amazon's warehouse, and then I think it froze in shipping to me because it has never behaved properly. It was like it was leaving some sort of film. So I decided to try a different brand. I've heard good things about Pebeo. We're gonna give masking fluid another chance. I bought a small size, what is this, 6 by 9 inches watercolor paper from Strathmore Vision. This is 300 GSM, it's cold press. This is artist paper. It's not like the highest quality, it's not 100% cotton, but it's still pretty darn good. I have bigger pads of this paper, but I'm running very low on my pre-cut B Paper Company sheets. This is the same size as those, and the Amazon listing for those B paper sheets has gone way up in price at the moment, so I figured I would grab a pad of this stuff to hold me over. But now we get to the star of the show, the thing that I was so excited about, the reason I figured we could do a first impressions reaction. Opus was selling these tiny little sample pads from Legion for $2 each. How could I resist? So we have Stonehenge Aqua Cold Press in black. I have used Stonehenge Aqua Cold Press in the natural whitish finish, but I've never tried it in the black. That's not what we're trying today. I grabbed a Stonehenge Colors. This is just a medium texture heavyweight drawing paper in different natural-ish tones. Curious to see what I think of different mediums on this paper, particularly pencil. I also got this sample size of the Stonehenge Aqua Hot Press because I have never tried this brand in a hot press before. Also, not what we're reviewing today. What we're reviewing today is Yupo! This is plastic watercolor paper. So I have a sample of the super thin translucent, I have a sample of the medium, and the heavy. I wish you could feel this on camera. This is like, I don't know, what could I compare it to? There's the heavyweight one. This feels like shiny presentation poster boards. I would say the same. Yeah, I would say that's what it feels like. It feels like that really glossy, heavy presentation poster boards that you would do all of your projects on back in elementary school. This one being as thick as it is, being the heavyweight, this probably is the weight of those poster boards. These ones are thinner. What I want to do for the second half of this video is I want to pull out a set of watercolors and I want to do a little play around on each of these and just give, not a full review, I will give a review after I've used them a bit more, but give like a first impressions, first initial thoughts on this type of paper. Alright, so here we go. I have one of each sheet out on a clipboard, and now you can really see that the translucent one is indeed translucent. It is thin enough that you can somewhat see things through it, which means you could probably do pretty interesting things with this paper, where you would maybe layer it over a colored paper to have a soft background. Might make interesting art to put up on a window, that kind of thing, or you're going to allow the light to shine through it. These two are more opaque. It's just a matter of this is drawing paper thin and this is watercolor poster board thick. They're all plastic based, so it's not going to matter so much that this is not as thick as this. I think that the experience is going to be pretty much the same across the board. That's my prediction, at least. Let's find out. First things first, I just want to see what these are like with pencil and with erasing. It seriously feels like coloring on poster board. Let's try with the little eraser. Okay, so you can erase. Can you erase completely? Can we get back to the white of the page? Let's try a bigger eraser. It even sounds like working on that plasticky finished poster board. Listen to this. Okay, so there's the eraser. It's not the most complete erasing, but it is very close and much better than I expected this to do. Hold on a minute while I finish erasing and then we can test some other materials. We've got a spot here on this one where the pencil actually broke a bit and snagged, and that has damaged the surface of the paper. Okay, before we get on to watercolor, let's try some different mediums that I am likely to try on this kind of paper. So we've got two different colored pencils. We have the high-end Faber-Castell Polychromos, and then we have the adult coloring book quality Staedtler Ergosoft. We've got two different pigment ink pens. One is the Tombow Fudnoske brush pen, and one is the Tombow Mono Drawing fineliner. I swear, I'm not making this one a Tombow video, that's just what was in reach. And we've also got a Copic for the alcohol ink, because I hear that this is really good paper to use with alcohol ink, even though it's primarily made as a watercolor paper. As the thickness of the paper increases, it's harder to use the cheaper, lower quality colored pencil. It went down reasonably okay on the translucent, but it feels like you're drawing on something that's not supposed to accept colored pencil on the medium and the heavy. Let's try the higher quality pencil, also an oil-based pencil versus a wax-based pencil. Not a medium I am eager to use on this sort of paper. I'm not sure how blending or details would work, but the higher quality, the oil-based core Polychromos pencil is actually behaving on all three weights. Play with some pigment ink. Nice and bold looking. I wonder how easy is that going to be to smudge. Let's go back to the first one. Yeah, so it's going to sit on top and smudge easily. I don't know if that's ever going to dry, or if it's always going to be smudgeable, so that'll be interesting. Let's leave that for quite a bit. I'll come back and try to smudge one of these two after a little bit more. Let's try the brush nib pen. Oh, interesting. So this ink is kind of trying to pull apart and pool, and it's leaving little white spots. This is like trying to use a non-permanent ink marker on plastic, which is exactly what we're doing. This is plastic paper and it's a non-permanent ink. Can you guys see how it's pulling away and leaving gaps? Let's try that Copic marker, see what the alcohol ink does. So with the alcohol ink, it dries really fast and it almost looks like the shape you've made on the paper is shrinking as it dries. It definitely gets to that lighter dried color super fast. You can watch it happen. If you go back over and try to get a deeper color, you are going to get a deeper color, but you're also going to get these edges. And that happens on any sort of smooth-toothed paper with alcohol markers if you do too many layers. But on this type of paper, apparently the layer limit is 1. Thinking back critically on this, the people I have seen absolutely love and rave about Yupo paper for alcohol ink are actually using the loose ink and doing the fluid art type thing. They're not using markers. This has had a bit more time. Does this still smudge? If I press hard, it does. Okay, so stuff is not going to be permanent on here. Let's get out that paper as a protective layer. I want to see, does the reverse side feel any different? It shouldn't. Being plastic, it should be the same on both sides, but you never know. I would say they're the same on both sides. I'm going to get out 3 more pieces, 1 of each, and we're going to do some watercolor playing. When you add a lot of water to the watercolor paint on this paper, it feels like it's never going to dry and you could push this around and play with it for ages. It also feels like it would not take much paint at all to fill the page. I'm sure that this is going to be useful to get different techniques, different textures. It's going to be a completely different beast than regular wood pulp or cotton watercolor paper. It looks like every brush stroke is going to show, so you have to be intentional with it. Look how much of the page I am covering with just that one first bit of paint though. This is amazing. So not the prettiest finish, but look how much I was able to spread that paint. And I could see, I can see using this for very specific techniques and doing very interesting things. Let's continue experimenting. Let's try wetting the page first. I'm also impressed that that stayed completely flat. This doesn't buckle at all. Okay, so wet into wet technique, it's not blooming a whole lot like I would expect watercolor to do on a wet page. Once I get the brush wet though, try to move it around. Again, spreads super easy, super fast. This is really eager to move around the page. It's not able to sink in. This is not a thirsty paper. It's not a porous paper. So you have a lot of time to play around with anything that's wet. Looks like maybe some damage to that paper. There are spots where nothing is sticking. I hope that that is only something that would happen in these little sample sizes and not in a bigger sheet, because this is not cheap paper. Let's see if I can smooth out these bubbles, spots where there's really concentrated color. Let's try a much bigger brush. Got a number 8 filbert now. What color should I use? Sap green. This one granulates and does interesting things on regular paper. What does it do on this? Almost took the paint completely out there. Interesting. See what that dries like. Back over here, this looks dry. Is it? Yeah. Seems to be dry. Now can I work this paper around? Is it going to flake off? Seems pretty solid, pretty permanently on there now. Would I be able to scratch it off? No, this is getting close to dry. This one's going to take a while. I used a lot of water there. Yeah, let's try to paint something here. Just going to see if I can do like a blobby flower. Going back over the second color, you really have to be intentional about where you're putting it, and any place where the layer beneath has strong grooves and streaks and it might show through. Like I'm seeing a white line through this little flower stem here, and that's from a brush stroke on the orange underneath. I wonder, can I layer white on top on this, or is it going to blend with the blue? I can't tell if that's reactivating the blue or not. Oh, it's definitely reactivating a little bit, but not completely. Now I'm finger painting. And that's not dry yet, so we're gonna have to wait a sec. Okay, so I've waited like 20-ish minutes at this point, and we are still drying. The green is almost dry from that initial put down of color. Something dropped on it after we've got another spot that's been washed out. This white over top of the blue is almost dry. It does not go down opaque, but it also didn't mix with the blue underneath, which is interesting. That is likely to happen on regular watercolor paper. Over here, the petals that I put down that are dry have ghosted, and there's more color on the edges than in the center, but the ones that were wetter are still wet, and the stem and the leaves and foliage down here, it looks like it's still wet, but it's not. And it's interesting, this is getting kind of a almost a chalky texture. It's not coming back off the page, it's not coloring my fingers. That's from when I was finger painting with the wet paint. Parts of this almost still look wet, and parts of this look very chalky. So I want to add more petals to the flower. I want to try some other mediums over here. Let's get a less wet pink to add into the flower here. I wonder if this being not as wet, if it will dry nicer. First parts of this here, I'm gonna have to go into the wet where the purple is still wet. It's just kind of taken over and become a spaced out blob of pink dots, and you don't really even register the purple anymore, which is not the effect I was going for. I'll have to add more to that when it dries again. In the meantime, what does colored pencil look like over top of dried paint? How does that compare to the colored pencil straight on the paper? Pretty similar. How about a water-based pen? Goes on top just fine. I was wondering if that was going to pick up paint or reactivate anything. That could be an interesting technique. Do either alcohol marker or watercolor as a background and then use a different medium on top. Is that going to be likely to smudge? Yes. Let's try a watercolor marker. Different type of water-based marker. Liquid watercolor in a water brush type pen. Interesting effects going into the other watercolor marker. Obviously, I'm not trying to make any amazing works of art here. I'm just having fun and experimenting. Pentel brush pen. We got a ink in a color brush type pen. Water brush type pen, I mean. Sorry. Ooh, that makes me want to try the Kuretake Cambio. Where did that go? Lighter ghosting effect. Ooh, look at that. Interesting shape. This one does seem to be interacting with the color below it. So I guess it really depends what sort of medium you're using. These liquid watercolors are doing exactly what the brush pen did. They're beating up and leaving gaps. Everybody out there listening, if you actually use Yupo, what do you use it for? What sort of techniques do you use? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Is it something you reach for all the time? And what techniques should I try with it? Out of curiosity, let's see what these look like if I put light directly under them. I like that. That's kind of like a stained glass kind of effect. Get a little bit of it on this medium one. You get a little bit of it on all of them, but obviously most on the translucent one. I feel like I should have done more research on this paper before jumping into this because I don't know what to say. I don't know what techniques I would like to use on this sort of paper, other than if I could bring myself to waste some Copic refill ink, it might be interesting to try the fluid art with the alcohol ink. Other than that though, I genuinely don't know what to do with this paper. It doesn't allow watercolor to behave the same way watercolor behaves on regular paper, which is kind of obvious. This is not regular paper, but I'm not seeing how the way ink and watercolor behaves on this paper would be more useful. I'm not seeing the niche for this type of paper. So if you are enthusiastic about Yupo paper, how do you use it? What are your favorite mediums on it? What are your favorite techniques? What did I do wrong today that I am confused about the appeal of this paper? Anyway, it is February in the middle of next week. Next Friday will probably be a Colors of the Month challenge. I don't know what Tuesday/Wednesday will be. Feel free to leave requests in the comments down below at any time. Tell me what sort of videos you want to see me do. I'm really struggling to come up with ideas for the channel that are things that I want to do, but will also get recommended outside of the core audience that watches everything. So those of you who watch me and also watch a bunch of other YouTubers who do stuff in the art niche, what is everybody else doing that you're actually interested in that you would like to see me do? Please leave that in the comments down below. That would be very much appreciated. If you're looking for more to watch, I've got some suggestions up on the left side of the screen now. Don't forget to like, comment, maybe even subscribe, and if you like living life creatively, whatever that means to you, I'd love to have you along for the ride. Bye guys!